At this point in time, you should probably see a banner that comes up to let you know that we have recorded or started recording the meeting here. So if you have objections to being recorded, of course, it's probably a good time to drop off. And outside of that, the standard disclosures, of course, apply with that whole thing that anything you can and see will be used against you, all that kind of jazz. So be aware that the recording is live. And now let's get our meeting all started here. So welcome to our user group meeting for this time around. Today's topic at about 6:20, we're going to have Kaycee is going to be online doing our nice little presentation for what's going on with our features as far as new ways to use Excel and data structure in everyday life. I'm going to go through and just talk a little bit right now about our sponsors, because these are the people that make all this stuff happen. Obviously, Microsoft that helps us out with a lot of different things here, including our feature speaker today, which is awesome. We've got XLGuru, that is my company that puts these things together and tracks down the speakers and hosts everybody along the way. Pass gives us a little bit of help along the route as well, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about them in a bit. And SkillWave is one of our divisions that we use for actually displaying and selling training to try and help get you better at the stuff that we're actually dealing with here. Our October meetup, we have someone really awesome coming. His name is Alex Powers. We're just trying to finalize the final details on that with his presentation, so we will update that when we get all of the details coming, but we're looking forward to that one. And I just wanted to throw out a last-minute shout on this one. On Monday, we are launching off our semester for our self-service business intelligence bootcamp at SkillWave. This is a product that I run. There is going to be approximately 18 hours of recorded training that goes in with Excel, with Power Query, with Power Pivot, or the data model on the back end, with DAX, with publishing to Power BI and integrating how to use Excel and Power BI better together. It comes with online Q&A time. It comes with Ask Me Anything sessions. All in all, I believe there's about 30 hours of training in this particular package. It all kicks off on Monday. If it's not too late to register, if you're interested, you can go to the URL here. This is in the slide decks that are already posted on our meetup site. So if you're interested, please check that out. We'd love to have you join us. If you're interested in connecting with Pass, you can do that at pass.org or on any of the social platforms that they have listed here. And just a quick note to throw out about the Pass Virtual Summit that's coming up November 10th to 13th. You can get $50 off the registration if you use our code here. This is Pass's big event of the year where they do a whole bunch of online training. Definitely worth checking out. There's all kinds of good stuff that happens there. Finally, the last thing I want to say is if you have anything that you want to share inside Power BI, inside modern Excel solutions that you would love to be able to do a presentation, we would love to have you here. So please just send an email to rebecca@xlguru.ca with the topic idea you have. Our group is super friendly here. They rarely say anything negative at all. Actually, I've never heard a negative comment from everybody. We love new speakers. We love having speakers that are experienced. We would love to have content from you along the way here. So if you're interested, please drop us a note and get your speaking career started with us. We'd love to have you along. On that note, I think I am through the intro and on exactly 6:05. Not bad. Joseph, the floor is yours. You want to go and take it for your quick what's new in Power BI? Not that there's much new to share this one, but I'll let you take over the screen.
I will be happy to. Let me get rid of this. Oh, there we go. Screen one. All right. Yeah, so welcome everybody again. Another month, another virtual Vancouver Power BI user group meeting. A little bit of behind the scenes for me and my process. So for the last year or so now, I've been doing the introduction to these Power BI meetup groups in Vancouver, and I took over from Yana to do the What's New in Power BI. And I don't know if we're sort of lucky or unlucky, but every month it sort of gets down to it, and it's always a really fun game of how close to the date of our meetup group is this month's new features in Power BI going to be released. So usually it's about a week or so before. I think a couple of months ago it came down to 1 day, maybe 2 days before. And so this week I think it got to Tuesday, maybe Monday, and it was like, okay, it's getting kind of tight now. Great to have a look at the features and have a chance to play around with them first before, presenting in a live demo. So I was sort of refreshing that the Microsoft Power BI blog page over and over again, pretty shamelessly. And then I see a tweet from Will Thompson saying, I have it up here. Hey, Power BI peeps, stop refreshing. And it's like, I don't know how you're monitoring my laptop in Vancouver, but fair enough. September release isn't coming until a little bit later. So you're just going to have to wait a little bit. So I thought, great. Okay, cool. I'm going to have to find something different to do the introduction for today's session. So the what's new in Power BI. There's nothing really new in Power BI. At least there's not a new feature set for this month yet. So I'm just going to go a little bit different direction today. And I actually want to review something that I'm really passionate about, aside from Power BI, and that's R, the statistical programming language. So probably around a similar time last year, I was watching a bunch of different R videos, and one that I really, really like was a session given by Hadley Wickham. He's the chief scientist at RStudio. RStudio is the development environment that I use when developing with my R code. They have tons of great free resources. They're the ones behind a lot of the most popular packages in the R world. But this session is called Managing Many Models in R. It's available on YouTube. I can provide the link later. And if you're interested in R, if you do code in R, this is a great introduction to the Broom package and how we can use tidy data principles for managing multiple models and running regression models in R. But if I just skip ahead here, there's lots of great visuals, and I thought, you know what, this is really cool, and I followed through the demo in R, but I started thinking this would be really great if I could do this in Power BI as well. Why not? I mean, I know R is probably more flexible, but let's see how far we can get in Power BI. So I did, and it was, I made some mistakes. It may have been a little bit cumbersome in places, but I actually blogged about it on my website here. And I have a blog post from September of last year, so actually, funny enough, almost exactly a year ago, managing many models with Power BI. And I walked through exactly how I replicated all of the steps from Hadley's presentation, but I did it in Power BI. So one of the biggest functionalities and features of Power BI that allowed me to replicate this logic from R was converting some of the transformation logic, converting some of those applied steps that are already built in the Power Query editor and change that into a function. So I just want to spend maybe 5-10 minutes today quickly reviewing the file that I put together. I'm going to walk through some of the manipulation steps that I built and then how I converted it to a function and applied it to a lot of different rows in my data source, the same transformation steps. So I'm going to jump in to my Power BI report. And we can see that this is, the same visual that we saw on the slides from the YouTube video. The data set that I'm using is a Gapminder data set. So that looks at different countries and continents in the world over time. And we have some variables such as the population, the life expectancy, and the quality of living in these various countries. So because we have that information over time, we've been able to build some pretty interesting statistical models about this. And so my first step, if I jump in here, was to create a linear model. So what I did is I took the source data set, which was up here, and we can see that I have one row per country per year. So we see the years we have up into 2007, and then 2002, 97. So we have one record for every 5 years back until 1952. So 12 records per country. And then for every year, we have the life expectancy of the population of that country. My next step is I just grouped all that information by the country. So if I click in the data column, is a complex data type down here. And within this table, we can see we have 12 rows one for every year with the life expectancy as well. So this was my starting point. If I click back to my source step, when I wanted to start building my solution, I knew that I wanted to basically build from scratch a regression model. So I had to calculate all the coefficients by hand, and I'm not going to go into detail for that process because that would probably be a full hour feature presentation. But the first thing I did is I just filtered down to one country, because really that's what I wanted to focus on. I just wanted to look at one country, and I wanted to build a predictive model just for one country at a time. So I filtered down to Canada. I expanded that data, so I had my whole data set. And I'm going to gloss over this part fairly quickly. But I basically added all of the things that I need to create a linear regression model. All of these different coefficients get plugged into a formula. And then finally, we're left with the coefficients of the model. We have our R squared, which is a measure of fit for the model. We have essentially the slope of the model and the intercept as well. So if you think back to like algebra back in high school, we have y equals mx plus b, or in this case, y is equal to ax plus b. And that's basically what we have. So for Canada, if we wanted to visualize the results of the model, this is what we would use. We would use these model coefficients, the intercept, and the measure of fit for it as well. So this was all great. I was able to do this for Canada, but I didn't want to go and have to rebuild this logic for every single country within that data set, because I think there are around 50. So what I could do is I could convert this query into a function. And so to do that, I have to think about, okay, what part of this logic, what part of these transformation steps need to change? Because if you're making a function, usually you apply a function to multiple things. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a function in the first place. And the function has to take on some input. So when I clicked back through my steps and I went back to my source step, it's like, okay, that's the whole data set. And then I filtered, this is when I filtered the country down to Canada. So I thought, okay, perfect. This is probably what's going to change all the time. It's going to be my country. All of these additional steps in my transformation steps are going to be exactly the same. It's just the country input that's going to be a little bit different. So I need to make that a variable content. I don't want to explicitly state I want to filter to Canada. So I'm going to use a parameter to do that. So I'm going to create a new parameter from the drop-down in manage parameters, new parameter, and I'll call it country filter. The data type is going to be text. It can take on any value, and we're going to set it to Canada. And when I do that, I just need to click back in my transformation steps, go to my filtered rows, and I'm going to replace the Canada as the string in quotes, my country filter parameter. And when I execute that, when it refreshes, absolutely nothing changes. And that's actually good, because I don't want anything to change at this point. I just wanted to replace the hard-coded string of Canada with my parameter. I've done that. And at this point is when I can convert all of this logic into a function. Power Query and within Power BI and the Power Query editor makes this really, really easy. All I need to do is right-click, hit create function, give the function a name. So we'll say create linear model. I'm going to hit OK. And just like that, it groups all of these things together in a nice, helpful folder. We have the function, we have the parameter that it takes an input to the function, and the query that that function is built off as well. So if I wanted to apply this to a bunch of different data that I have, so for every country, I'm just going to reference this, bring this down here. And if I go to add column, invoke custom column, the new column name's custom, that's fine. I want my create linear model, and then I just need to give the model some input, or my function some input. I need the country filter. I want that to be my country column. There we go. And now all I need to do is expand this. I don't need to use my column prefix. And now I have the coefficient for the models of each of those individual countries we have over, oh, there was way more than I thought, 142 rows. I didn't have to go and build that logic 142 times. I was able to just build it on Canada, convert that logic into a function, and apply it to every single row in that data set. And that's when I can start creating some visuals that look a little bit like this using the R² value for the size of the dot, the slope, and the intercept as well to plot some things. So it's going a little bit further than just making visuals there. I could have, of course, just copy pasted my R code into Power BI, but I think it was a fun exercise for me going through and seeing how I could use some of the out of the box functionality in Power Query to rebuild something that I saw in R. So I've also gone the other way as well. I've built some things in R that I've done in Power BI, but I think that the more I work through some examples like this, the more similarities between the two tools on the data manipulation side. If you want to dig in a little bit more or see exactly how I did it, again, my blog post is here at feathersanalytics.com. Just go to the blog section, managing many models, and I walk through each of the individual steps of how I built this example, including the nice long formula for calculating my slope and intercept. And then also all the way down to the bottom where I built some of the visuals of how we could go a little bit deeper analysis into this Gapminder data set. So that's all for me today. A little bit different than the what's new in Power BI, but again, just something I'm passionate about, something I'm interested in. And if you do have any questions, or it is something that you're interested in talking about, you can find me on Twitter at Feathers Analytics, at Feathers Analytics. This is my page. You can also, if you want any of my contact information, I believe it's on the Meetup site, or you can even just message me in the meeting chat. That's totally fine. But with that, that's everything that I had prepared for today. So I'm going to pass it back to Ken at this point, and hopefully we're ready to go with the feature presentation.
We are ready to go with the feature presentation. I'm going to let Kaycee go and take over the screen. Kaycee, I'm sure you can hear us, and you can jump on mic as well. I just want to make sure that you got all the tools to actually be able to take over the presentation, though. That's the first part. So
that's a good point.
There we go.
Test.
Excellent.
Can
okay,
you
that
me?
works.
And can you see my screen?
I can hear you, and I can see your screen. So that is perfect.
Yeah.
So I just to give you guys a quick intro here as to what's happening. I'm actually super excited about this because oftentimes when I'm actually reaching out for speakers, I'm reaching out through the different community, or I'll have people that are coming to me on different things, and it's been very seldom that I've actually reached out to Microsoft to get a speaker. And I sent an email into Kong, who is the guy that looks after our sort of MVP group, and I didn't want to sort of presume anything, so I just said, hey, Kong, can you find me a speaker? But I actually had one person that I was hoping would actually respond to this, and it was Kaycee. So it was pretty awesome when she says, yeah, I can do a presentation. I'm like, fantastic. Because the thing is I know what Kaycee's been working on, and I thought this would be an awesome thing to actually see, but I just wasn't brave enough to go and directly ask her to do a presentation for us. So, Kaycee, I'm super stoked that you're joining us on this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this stuff all goes here. I'm going to hand the floor over to you, but the one thing that I just wanted to let people know is that Kaycee and I were chatting beforehand. I'm going to be monitoring the chat on this, and Kaycee said she likes questions as we go along, so I'll potentially jump in here and ask some of the questions related to this stuff as she's presenting, as she has asked me to do. So on that note, Kaycee, for now, I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to let you go and have the floor. It's all yours.
Thank you. For everyone's information, I turned on my camera for a minute. I'll probably turn it off while I'm actually presenting because you don't need to see my thinking face. But yes, I just wanted to introduce myself in person. So yes, I've kind of titled this presentation Excel for Fun, and hopefully you will have fun with me in the next 40 minutes or so. And I do have a link that we will share this presentation out after, just because it has some helpful links in it. So you will get a copy of this, which includes my email address. And some people at Microsoft are like, oh, don't do that. And I'm like, bring it on. The worst I can do is not read it. So The agenda for the day or for the evening is just going to be a quick who am I? Then we're going to talk a little bit about linked data types, and then go into some new stuff, which is the StockHistory function and Wolfram data types. And at the end, there will probably be time for a Q&A, though I could talk about this stuff forever, so I'll try to keep an eye on time. So who am I? My name is Kaycee Reineke. I'm an Excel program manager, and I joined in 2017. I joined Excel in 2017. I actually was just telling Kim this. I joined Microsoft in 2014, and I originally was hired on the Visual Studio debugger team, if that means anything to you. And so I got my kind of start into the world of Microsoft through developer tools, and then I kind of was like, oh, this isn't where I want to be. I want to be more like customer facing, and I think Excel has some of the best customers. And so it's been really a treat to be on this end of Microsoft over in Office land working on Excel. I think some of the stuff I'm about to show you fits really well into my like programmer mentality that I kind of had when I first got here, which I think is why I fit. So what I feel like I fit well on the Excel team is because if you guys are proficient in Power BI and Excel, or even if you're just, writing a function, that's programming. And, Excel's not a fully functional programming language, but we're getting close. It's pretty exciting stuff. I like to say that on the Excel team, my major is in rich data, which is a lot of what I'll be talking about today. And I have a little minor in calc. And calc is everything from like data structures through how do things flow in your formulas and functions. So now, a caveat that I told our marketing manager that I would make sure to tell you today is with the new stuff I'm going to show you, don't get too excited. I think it's pretty exciting, but she wanted me to acknowledge that we still do have a long way to go. And at the end of the presentation, I have a slide about, what's available in what level. You might have heard of the release rings. We're definitely not out to the production level ring for these new things that I'm talking about. So unless you jump through a couple hoops and then flip a coin, you may or may not have access to them to play around with them after my presentation. So that's the don't get too excited part, is that a lot of this, I told her I'd frame this conversation more as like a getting your feedback, even though there will be demos as I go on here. So yes, please just take what I'm about to show you with a grain of salt. We're refining it and it's not perfect yet, but we are hoping to get it out to you as soon as possible to a broad production audience. So, and since I titled this program Excel for Fun, I put on here a couple things that I use or used in the past Excel to do. I was living in Excel every day while I was planning my wedding, and it was a lifesaver to keep my head organized. I actually use Excel to track my vacation days. And a calendar, no, I use Excel because I have to calculate how many days I'm earning and then when I can take those vacation days as soon as possible. I also use it to, review my bank statements, make sure I'm not spending too much on candy every month. And of course, I use it every single day at work. And the Excel team uses Excel almost like a document editor, like other people would use Word. And so it's been really fun to just learn the flexibility of Excel in that sense, because you can use it for anything. So that's just a little bit there. I'll turn off my camera now, but it was nice meeting you in person. Okay, so to the next slide. Rich data, that's kind of what I said I majored in, was rich data. And what does rich data mean? Well, this is just a quick kind of history lesson and stuff you may or may not be familiar with, which is why I wanted to cover it. So the before times in Excel, there were 4 types of data types. That would be text, numbers, Booleans, and errors. Now, we have all of those data types plus objects. And these objects, we, in a true Microsoft confusing fashion, we also call data types. And so linked data types are what I'll be talking about today. And you can think of a data type as kind of like an object. We refer to modern arrays sometimes as a data type. We refer to, different buckets of these objects as data types. Linked data types specifically are connected to a public data provider. So anything that is a linked data type will make a call out to an external connection of a data provider, package that data up in a way that Excel understands it, and then sends it to Excel so that we can display it to you in this form, like I have on the right side of my screen, meaning that within this one cell, we have this little icon that tells you this isn't just text. This is packing a wallop. And within that data type object, that linked data type, we have all of this key value pair type information. And so currently we have two data types available publicly everywhere, stocks and geography. Hopefully you've seen them on your data ribbon. And we'll talk a little bit about stocks as we go into the feature I'll show you first, which is stock history. And then the second feature I'll talk about today is Wolfram data types, and those are coming soon. We'll go all into that. So that's just a little background on linked data types. The linked emphasis means that they are connected to a data provider. So we'll start with a stocks/stock history demo. I put this link to the slide, or link in the slide, to a blog post where my coworker Sam created an investment tracking template. And so here is what that looks like when you open it up. And I won't go over every tab individually, but just to give a brief understanding, when I talked about these linked data types, this is a linked data type for Starbucks Corporation, and this is one for Amazon. And if I want one for Microsoft, all I have to do is type the ticker symbol into the cell and get Microsoft to call up to the data provider, say, hey, what are you? And then come back with this object that is linked data type Microsoft. And when I click on the symbol in the cell, it opens a card. And that card has key value pair style information about my data type, my object, my entity here. And price is the most interesting thing for most people in the stocks data type. But there's lots of other key value pairs, and we are always looking for feedback on what kind of key value pairs are missing or incorrect. And you can tell us more about that if you click that little flag button at the bottom of a card. We do go through and read this content and try to update accordingly. And hopefully that will be available on all of our data types. So you can do it for stocks or geography or the Wolfram data types in the future. And when I say key value pairs, you can see how when I put this in this table, it filled down the formula for price to show me the Microsoft price. And that is used, or we do that using dot notation here, and I will get more into that when we talk about Wolfram. But for now, the core concept to understand is that Microsoft here is a stock data type. And through this portfolio, my coworker has built some dashboards using some Excel features like trend lines, or yep, and some conditional formatting. One thing I will note for stock data and stock data types is that currently the data does not refresh automatically. That is a feature we are working to build so that your stock will be up to date every 5 minutes. And we do get real-time data for like NASDAQ, the NASDAQ Stock Exchange, for example. We do get real-time data from NASDAQ, but it's on a 15-minute delay. So it's real-time on a 15-minute delay, and we have auto refresh that we enable or will be enabling soon, but for now you might have to go and refresh all, which will update your data to the nearest update interval that is supported by the data provider. So then I'm going to skip over to this compare stocks page of this template to look at, because the amazing thing here that is new is this chart. And this chart is a stock history graph. And before in Excel, with the stock data type, you weren't able to get stock history. So this is something we've been working on for over a year now. And I believe it is released to 100% of our insiders beta channel. And I can explain more about that at the end about how to get a part of that. And it's released to 50% of our insiders preview channel. So there is a high likelihood that if you're super excited about stock history, you can try it out today and have access to the feature. Now, this is just a chart. How did my coworker make this chart, you ask? Great question. They used a function. So I unhid this sheet, which is their backing data, and they call it compare history. And it looks very boring, but it's based in dynamic arrays. And they have used dynamic array functions. And I guess maybe I should direct this question to Ken. Ken, do you feel like this group has a basic concept of dynamic arrays, or do you think it'd be helpful to just brush up on that a little bit?
You know what? I think it probably would be helpful to brush up on it a bit. I'm not sure what the experience is of the folks in here, so I think it certainly would be handy to just at least do a quick demo of what they are for sure.
Perfect. Okay, thanks. So because stock history is taking advantage of dynamic arrays are a new thing that is rolled out to all of Excel. And so you may have encountered them without even knowing it. So if I have data in a range and I reference that range, what's going to happen is that this is going to, we call it spill into a dynamic array, where previously referencing a range like this uses something called implicit intersection. That won't be on the quiz later. Don't worry about that word. But instead of going, okay, this equals A1 at this location, it actually takes the whole of what I referenced and turns it into an array, which means that I can actually take this array now in cell C1 and do something like transpose on it, which is an array function, and I can transpose on this cell, and to reference the whole array, all I have to do is put a sharp sign after it, and you can see that my my outline went from just cell C1 to the entire range of the C1 array. And when I do that, the result is going to spill over here. And now I referenced a fixed range here with cells 1, 2, 3, and 4. But if I wanted to help reinforce the concept of a dynamic array, what I could do is I could use like the unique function. And if I give the unique function a range, it will return an array. And as I update these cells, so I update 1, 2, 3, 4 to 1, 2, 4, 4, you will see that column C changes to have 1, 2, 4. And so that happened dynamically, and it flowed through my transpose function. And so if I continue to reduce this down even more, what's happening is that it's just using the concept of an array and dynamically updating it with functions that flow through calc without the customer having to worry about that nasty word implicit intersection. So
hey, Kaycee, can you zoom in a bit or make it just a bit bigger for people? That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
You guys don't have my young eyes. No, I'm just kidding. I actually don't.
Probably a fair comment on mine anyway.
That was very, very mean of me. I take it back. I just have a giant screen. Let's go with that. My apologies. So, yeah. And I'll zoom in on the other tabs as well when I go back there. So that's kind of just a little tidbit about dynamic arrays, or modern arrays as they can be known. I think the main part to focus on is that the length of the array can change. And you can reference that array using a sharp sign. And that comes in handy for stock history functions as well. So over here, we will start with how did my coworker get this stock history graph working. I come back to this sheet, and I can start by zooming in so you can see. I hope that's a little better. And here I'll just go over the basics of the function to start with. So if you type equals and then STOCK, you will see that the stock history function is available in your dropdown for IntelliSense like auto completion. And the parameters, I know these are small, but the parameters are, stock, start date, end date, interval, headers, and properties. I'll get to these optional things later. Excuse me, I'll get to anything in parentheses, which is optional. But first, let's start with stock. What does stock mean? As an input to this function, I can put a stock as a text reference to a ticker symbol, which would be Microsoft in quotation marks. And I can put a start date as a reference in quotation marks. So this would be basically a text start date. And I'll put in yesterday as the start date here. And now this is all I need to make this function work. And it's going to default end date to start date. And I'm getting a pound value. So let me just look at that one. And it only includes non-trading days, which probably means I have chosen something. Oh, it's because it's not. Is it in September? My apologies, folks. It's not a Microsoft demo unless it goes wrong. So that's a bug. Like I said, this stuff is new. So that is a bug that I will go and show my coworker because I should be able to type a quotation mark here and say 9/17/2020, and that should return just like that as well. So ignore that bug. I'll go back. Basically, I gave it a ticker symbol and a date, and it returns for me a dynamic array. And by default, it's going to return the first row of that array being a header column. And the second row of that array will be the date that I requested and the close price of the ticker for that date I requested. Now, let's look at some of the options that are available. I can also choose an end date. So if I actually take this 17th date and move it over to my end date and replace this with the 1st of September, you can see that my array spills all the way down and over for every trading day in September so far. You can see that there's numbers between 4 and 8 that are missing, and that's because we skip over by default non-trading days, which would be weekends and holidays that correspond to the exchange. And you might ask, hey, I only gave it MSFT. I didn't give it an exchange. What exchange is it using? That is where the headers property can come in handy. Interval is just daily, weekly, or monthly. That one's pretty self-explanatory. But there's an option here for show instrument identifier and header. And when I put in that option, you'll see I now have two header columns in my array that is returned. And the first one tells me that this is the XNAS Microsoft stock history, or XNAS Microsoft stock that it's giving me the history for. And if I wanted to specify a different exchange, I could look up the exchange identifier and type that in with a colon in front of Microsoft. But an easier way, in my opinion, to specify the exchange is by creating a stock data type. So our stock history function and our stocks data type play well together. When I click stocks for MSFT, by default, again, it gave me the XNAS Microsoft exchange, but if I wanted to, I could go to change my data type, and it's going to search exactly for this string, but I'm going to change that search to just search for Microsoft. And you can see that in this data selector, I can choose the Microsoft stock on several other exchanges. including the Borsa Italiana exchange. And so now when I change this stock, this function that was referencing that stock also gets updated with that data. So I guess I should have over here referenced, instead of referencing the text MSFT, I can reference the cell that contains my stock data type. I can reference the cell that contains my stock data type. And now you can see that that second header updated and it matches the Italian exchange, and all of my prices are also in euros because that is the currency that this exchange is traded on. And the last thing I wanted to share here is that I put these dates in as text with quotation marks, and I could also use cell references. Just like I did for that, I can reference this cell that contains a date, and I can reference this cell that contains my end date, as well as if I wanted to, I could change the interval to weekly, which is used as a 1. And then I hit enter. Pound busy means that Excel is fetching the data, so that will flow through calc. And then when it comes back, you can see that the data is in weekly intervals, showing the close price for that week. And if I decided that I actually want my end date to be in the future, and this will be easier to see on if I change this function to be on the monthly interval. Nope, I meant to hit 2, my bad. If I change this to be on the monthly interval, you can see that it gives me every month through September. When I open this workbook on October 1st, Excel will try to reload the stock history function. And when it does that, it will add another row to the dynamic array that is the month of October, and the same for dates in the future. So that's one thing that seems very subtle with this feature, but you can actually set your end dates to dates in the future and expect them to refresh on load of your workbook with stock history. If you want to do this a different way and you don't care about stopping at a specific date in the future, you can use the today function, which is supported just like any other function for your end date. And this makes the function volatile. So every time you recalculate this whole worksheet, this function will calculate also, because it depends on this cell, which is the today function. So tomorrow, the next day, the day after that, will trigger a recalculation of this stock history function. Okay, I only wanted to spend about 5 to 10 more minutes on stock history. So I also know that I'm giving a lot of information at you, and hopefully it's semi-coherent. So again, feel free to stop me and ask questions, Ken, if they come up in the chat. I'll just pause for a second before I go into how charts can be used and the additional options like volume, open, high, low, and close.
So there's no questions in the chat queue right now, but
Okay.
obviously people feel free to fire them in there if there are questions. So I would say for right now that you can probably soldier on, and I'll just give you the high sign if anything shows up here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ken. Okay, so soldiering on, this function I authored with the properties variables. So when I look at this function, I'm going to delete these last 4 numbers. We have 5 properties, 6 properties, technically, if you include date, that are available to be used with the stock history function. And they are close, open, high, low, and volume. Close is exactly what it says. It is the close price at the end of the week, end of the month, or end of the day, depending on the interval. Open is the same. High is the highest price within the time requested. So if you've requested a weekly interval, it is the high given that week time range, and the same for low and month. And then volume corresponds to the volume within that time period as well. So if you don't leave, or if you choose not to specify any properties at all, we will default to just giving you the date and the close. If you choose to specify some properties, you can do them in any order and you do not have to include all of the properties. So if I wanted to go volume, close, open, high, low, I can do that and then have my chart adjust accordingly. The reason I paused to think about the order that I wanted those in was because Excel has a feature that I had never heard of before I started working on stocks, but I can actually insert a stock chart. So if I go to all charts and I click stock, you can see it has 4 different default chart types available for me. And one of them happens to be volume, open, high, low, close. Darn it, I did it out of order. But if I go back in here and I change the order of my columns to match any of these charts, open, high, low, close, for example, let's go and do that one. So that would be open, high, low, close. And then I go to insert a chart and choose the stock chart that matches open, high, low, close. Boom. You can see that it has made the chart for me. And because my date range is so wide, all of the dots are very tiny. So let's go back here and change my date range. Why don't we just do for September? Yep. Insert chart. The chart didn't automatically adjust with dynamic arrays. This is where we need better feature integration across the board for all of our objects, where I would have expected that chart to adjust when I adjusted my dynamic array, but alas, it does not. However, here you can see it's a very nice little chart that matches what I have. That matches what I have here. Jeez, I keep moving that. Yay! Okay, click out of that. So, don't do it. I love giving presentations without feedback because I can't hear you guys laughing at me as I repeat the same thing over and over again, like an insane person. So, the next step of this in this presentation is that I just wanted to show that everything is fluid with calc. And so right here, I had chosen the Brazil Microsoft, but I want to go back to the XNAS version of Microsoft. And it flowed through calculation. It read this formula and the formula updated with the chart. And so that's just one of the things I wanted to show is how that worked. And one other fun thing on stocks that many people don't know is that stocks, the stock feature also supports currencies, in particular currency pairs. So if I want US dollars to Canadian dollars, I have to type it in with this currency pair notation. And then if I choose stocks, it will show me the currency pair for US dollar to Canadian dollar. And that would, the price field here represents the exchange rate. So if I were to do Canadian dollars to US dollars and then turn that into a stock, it should be exactly the opposite when I extract the price. Boom. And while currencies don't have volumes associated with them necessarily. The stock history function will work by using currencies as well. So currency will do the same start date and end date. And when you're seeing a pound spill here, I knew I was going to get this error, but I left it in just because when it pound spills, this means that the array that I have created resulting from this function wants to take up more room than I have in this workbook to spare without cutting off other data. So you can see this outline here with dots running around this area, and I can just go ahead and move my function down, and now that area has room to spill. And eventually we're going to figure out how to collapse this data into a single cell like we do with these items. But for now, this is how it works. You have to take a pound spill and either move this data or move the actual array.
Kaycee, we got a couple of comments have come in now for you.
Okay, great.
I didn't hear any laughing, although I was feeling your pain with this kind of stuff. But and I do actually want to point out, because I don't know how many people here have actually gone to a presentation when you've got a Microsoft Program Manager that's actually demoing features here. But Kaycee's going to be running a build of what we call, I believe you guys are on dog food, aren't you? Where they get all the new features and all the new bugs, and every time they do a demo, there's always wild and wonderful stuff that happens that is taken back to the engineers and whatever else. So we're happy that you guys deal with that and we don't generally have to. At any rate, a couple of comments have come in. We got two comments that have come in from people saying this is seriously awesome, this is amazing. So so that's the first part. And then the second part is how does the stock information work when you're offline? Does it error out, or does it keep what was last saved? What's the experience there?
That's a great question. So we have designed it to try and be as seamless as possible. So if you are offline, what's going to happen is your functions that you've already created are going to try to call the internet. They're going to fail, and we are going to reuse what we have in our cache. And so in the workbook, we're actually keeping a cache of this data. And so if I were offline completely right now, and I entered in a end date that was less than the 17th, all of this data that I'm showing on my screen would already be in the cache. And so the calculation will succeed because it will look at the cache and say, hey, I have information about the 15th, so I will show that information. If you request a date beyond the 17th, because you're editing the formula, what will happen is that it will give you an error that will typically be pound connect. And pound connect just means that you've tried to request information that's not available in the cache and you are offline. And so in order to fix that pound connect error, you will have to reconnect to the internet. Control Z should work to get you back to your cached state if you are offline and have not made an edit to your function. If you are extremely worried or need, or if you're worried or need to just kind of have a backup of your data, paste as values over a dynamic array works exactly as you would expect. So I paste as values over this dynamic array, and now no matter what I change in my function, it's no longer a dynamic array. Of course, it's in the cells, but the data is there permanently, and no amount of connectivity will change that. Does that answer the question?
I'm thinking it probably does. I think that was pretty comprehensive. I didn't realize that there was another new pound connect error. Awesome. So next one that we've got in there, a comment that somebody needs to play with their own stock portfolio. I just need to get one personally. Now, what about, I love this because I love the way this is actually worded. Is the stock history function currently available in Office 2019?
That is a great question. I have this slide at the end, and you'll see that I have a with M365 subscription. Microsoft has made a decision above my pay grade that these connected features are only going to be available to be authored or created by customers with subscriptions to Office. So that's any of the subscription channels. However, Read is going to be available on all versions of Office. So if you have created a stock history function in a subscription and open it up on your 2019, you will be able to read the functions that have already been created. They won't error out for you. It's almost as if you were functioning offline, so to speak. And so get on a subscription is my marketer in me. So, and that includes stuff like the ideas feature, all of the data types, stock history, and any new connected functions that we're trying to build. Does that help?
Stuff. Yeah, that's helpful. Actually, I'm surprised that would actually go back to 2019. So, because I would have given a different answer on that. So cool. It's good to hear it from you who actually knows. Last question on this one right now is: Are there any resources in Microsoft documentation area so that they can read through before they actually start jumping in and playing with this?
Yes. The easiest thing to read will be this blog post. Where basically I give a much more comprehensive version of what I tried to explain in the last 20 minutes. And in that blog post, it will have a link to our help article as well, which has more details about the error cases specifically. But this is just one to get you started. It also has links to how to access or how to understand better dynamic arrays, and gives some basic examples in a comprehensive form, hopefully. So that link's included in the presentation that you'll get at the end.
Cool. Yeah, we'll circulate that on. We'll post the link on the meetup group once the presentation's over. So, and at this point, that's all the questions that are in the queue, Kaycee. So I think you're good to go.
Thank you. And so I'll just back up to the 2019 question one more time. So I guess I should clarify and caveat that we have done our best to try to make 2019. Internally we say not throw up. When stuff like this with the new connected services are shared around. So we do have a back compat story. We continuously look at our perpetual versions like Office 2019, and if in the future there is another version, Office 2025 or whatever, we continue to try and refine our compatibility story between the subscription services and the one-time purchase Office availabilities. And so that's probably just something good to know in general, is that we believe that we have figured out these compatibility stories, but there always can be issues. So it's kind of one of those, you might see something like a rich error like pound unknown in some cases if we've not been able to fulfill that back compat for data types, for example. So, sorry. So we're trying to make it work and it should work in these cases, but our main goal is like it won't throw up on you. Great. Okay, so I included in this slide a little summary of everything I just talked about and a link to that blog post. Now the thing you're probably actually here for is the Wolfram data types, which are more fun in Excel. And these are data types that have not been released beyond 50% of Insider's beta channel. And I know Ken, even as a Microsoft MVP, has gotten an unlucky flip of the coin into this. But with that being said, I will go ahead and start my introduction on the new data types. Let's start with the periodic table. I think this one's pretty fun. We'll begin on the welcome table. I have links to blog posts where you can download these templates I'm about to share. But one thing that trips some people up is the yellow business bars that come across the top. You will have to click enable editing and then enable content. And so it won't work unless you accept both business bars. But now that I've done that, I have access to new data types. On your data types ribbon, you will be used to seeing stocks and geography, But now you click the more, you're going to be able to click the more button and get a preview of data types. And so these are currently the Wolfram Alpha backed data types that we plan to support in our upcoming releases. This ribbon is very dynamic and can change. So we make no promises about what actually ends up here. There's over 100 data domains that Wolfram knows about and can give us information on to various degrees. And so on my PM team right now, we are really doing a tight iteration on, does Wolfram provide data that will help you as a consumer accomplish your task? And so at the end of my slideshow, I have a link that will allow you to give me feedback on if you would use any data domains, and if you would, what information, like key value pair type things like price for stock, are you looking for to accomplish your scenario? So I would love to hear feedback on that after the presentation. At the end of my slides, I have a link. And I use the word data domain. I think about that as a category of data types. And these category of data types, for example, with location, that is a category of data types that includes cities, states, things that are included in Bing's geography, but you can see this one is powered by Bing down here at the bottom. And you can see that location here is powered by Wolfram. So their city data and their state data may have different key value pairs, but Wolfram provides additional locations like universities and amusement parks and historic sites and architectural structures and different things like that. So we are trying to wade through all of these different domains and figure that out. I think I just saw a question come into the chat, which is, are these data types available now? Yes, for 50% of the beta channel of insiders. And at this slide here, when you get an access to it, you can join Microsoft Insiders by going to this link. And then within that link, after you register your email, you can go to, I'm sorry, I've got too many things open. You can go to your account and you can make sure you're signed up for Office Insiders, and then you change your channel. And you'll want to be on the, I have a lot of channels because I work inside Microsoft, but you will want to be on the beta channel. Beta channel, there it is. And then the system will flip a coin, and if that coin lands on heads, you will restart Excel twice and have this, and if it lands on tails, you will not until we roll out further. So,
Kaycee, just one thing I want to add to that one is for people, that switch that Kaycee just showed you there only works if you are on a personal subscription for Office. It does not work if you're on an enterprise subscription. If you're on an enterprise subscription on an E3 or E5 SKU or something like that, you have to do a little bit more searching. You have to download and install the Office configuration tool and run a script that'll actually then go and change your stuff, or you've got to get into hacking some group policy objects in order to be able to, you can still get on Insiders, but you may need to talk to your IT department, and we all know how well that goes, but it is entirely possible. I'm on a corporate subscription. I am on Insiders, but it does take some work. So
boo indeed,
happy
Joseph.
about that.
Yes, thank you for that caveat. It's always good to be reminded that, you know, different levels of everything are available. And yes, so this is a consumer
I wish it
subscription.
was as easy as your switch that you had right there, and I'd really like to talk food bills.
We make things so easy inside Microsoft because we get so annoyed about having to do things, and then we have to make sure that we make it as easy for other people. I think I definitely empathize with we get lost in those sometimes. And Brent says if you're in the developer program, you can be the admin of your own E5 tenant. Fantastic.
It's good as long as I mean, it's always when you get into working with big IT, right? And I mean, IT doesn't want you switching your channels back and forth, right? So if you're in the developer program, you are the admin, I think, so you're good to go. But yeah, it is it is possible. You just gotta run a script, and that IT may block it, but it is totally possible.
Fantastic. Yes. Thank you for that. Okay, so real quickly, not real quickly. We've got time. Okay, so this is hydrogen. Pop quiz that I don't expect you to answer, but we'll do it this way. Pop quiz. Hydrogen is what atomic element? Or what atomic number is hydrogen? Well, this has been converted to a data type already. So I know that because it has a little symbol next to it in the cell. And Lilia is correct. It is 1. So when I click on this symbol, you can see that it will open a card for me. And this card has been provided by Wolfram Alpha. And these are the key value pairs: atomic symbol, atomic number, atomic mass, and it goes on and on and on. And we are working on ways on how to make this more succinct. But as you can see, it has several key value pairs, and something that's new with Wolfram Alpha data types that we're releasing with this is that we have a concept of nested data types. So this doesn't apply for the stocks data types, but for the new Wolfram data types, you can see that the discovery country, being in the United Kingdom, has a symbol next to it as well. And we're trying to really key in that, hey, if a cell or if a thing has a symbol, that means that has more data behind it. So when I click on discovery country and go into the United Kingdom, we actually go query Wolfram Alpha for everything we know about the United Kingdom. And so it can be full name, nationality name, and even some demographic information is available for the United Kingdom. And so this concept of digging in is represented up here in the, we call it the, oh gosh, navigation bar, where if I go back to the top and I see that here there's a symbol next to this, which means I can click to go into that thing. You can see how my navigation bar continues to build. So if I continue to go down a path, I can always get back out using that navigation bar to my kind of root node. In this case, it was the element hydrogen. And I think I saw someone say, hey, that's the pillars of creation. It is. So we as Excel don't have control over what Wolfram provides to us, but we ask for a hero image in many cases. And so for the elements, when they're able to provide a hero image, they just kind of have made one up. And in this, they're saying hydrogen, it's a building block, this is its hero image. Carbon has a different hero image, for example, which is a diamond, which is just a fun little addition here. One of the other fascinating things about the images, once I go to the, where's going to be a good place to do that? Okay, we'll go here for images. And if I click on hydrogen, I can use the card. And there's this symbol here. And you've seen it repeated throughout Excel. And this is where at the very beginning, I said I would get to later, which is this symbol is represented for any time you click on it, we want to allow you to extract a property into the grid or into a table. So when I'm in my table and I see this icon, I can click on it and then choose a property to pull it out into the grid. And in a table, it will fill down that property for all of the table. Now, if I have hydrogen and helium, all of these things, I can copy and I can paste them here. And if I have all of these in the grid, you'll see that symbol happens and comes there again. And when I click on that symbol here, it doesn't fill down because I only selected one cell. I would have to select all of the cells I'm interested in and then pull them out. And we have plans to make this smoother and smoother. But the point is, when I get to the card, anytime I see this symbol, it means that I can click on that to pull it into the grid of sorts. And I can do that through what we call dot notation. And this is where the programmer in me is very excited because we all know about cell referencing. And when I reference a cell, now I can add a dot after a cell that references a data type. And we've had this for a while, but it's super cool now too. I can add a dot after referencing a data type and then type in and autocomplete a property, and then that property looks up for that element and returns the value. And that means that if I decide to move that and or overtype it and replace it with helium, for example, you will see that both of these, once I choose which helium I mean, a chemical element or a compound, when I choose the helium I mean, these things, because they are referenced in a programmatic way, will also update. So that is just a cool tidbit that I think it's important to understand and really internalize, is that I can reference things in the grid that are buried and nested inside of these data type objects. This is about to blow your minds. For the first time, we are able to use images in cells. And this is coming out with this Wolfram data types release as well. Helium here, if I click on the button, like I said, extract to grid, it's going to go and fetch this image from Wolfram and put it into the cell right here. And so because it is confined to the cell itself, that means I can drag it around just like I would a formula, because it is a formula. The value just happens to be an image. If I wanted to make this bigger, because I am currently confined, I have to, oh man, create a new sheet because that sheet is protected. Sorry, folks. Copy this over to my unprotected sheet. And I can pull out all of these images at once, actually, by using .image. They are busy because they're being fetched, and there I have all of them. But if I wanted, I need to make them bigger so I can see them. But I would do that for all of them, but it did not. To select. Oh, 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 oh. There we go. And so now they kind of fill to the dimensions of the cell. Images and cells. Yes. Wow. This is cool. Yes. Yes, it is. Fantastic. We acknowledge that the image quality in the grid itself is not as good as the image quality that we can provide in the card itself. You can see the pixelation here. That is a long-term fix for us because of how old Excel is and how we can render things on the grid. So just FYI, we are working toward fixing that. But these images may not be very helpful. However, there is other images that Wolfram provides for us, and like the periodic table location, for example. And if I pull out the periodic table location, you can see that helium, this is an image returned to us by Wolfram where helium is highlighted on the periodic table location. Then you can use these data types to make whatever, these are the building blocks for whatever spreadsheet you want to make in Excel. And so here we've gone ahead and created the periodic table of elements, but each element is also a data type. And so if you were to explore this periodic table, you can click on each of these little symbols to view the data type for that symbol. And because we can do conditional formatting and use the full power of Excel. If I am interested in zirconium, I can use conditional formatting then to highlight zirconium and find that for me if I didn't know where it was. And this is just kind of an example of like just the power of Excel to be flexible and do what you need to do. And because we have, data validation, we use field values in data validation, and the bottom numbers here that are conditional formatted, we can change to their period instead of their valence. And all of those numbers, because they're just referenced, it does look like a complex formula, but at its root, it's referencing the dot notation for the period of boron, or the period of each element that this exists as. It just we're exploring, like, this is opening up new ways for how to take one cell of data and pack a punch and be able to reference it anywhere in your worksheet or workbook. So that was just a quick, look how cool for element. And chemistry is very similar. So we support, or we can support, chemicals as well as individual elements. So chemicals are those things like, carbon dioxide, water, and even on this, you can see that Wolfram can provide structural diagrams for some of these things. And again, we have awesome people who work on Excel to build these worksheets, but this is just to give you an idea of how you can reuse data types, even in data validation to some degree, to reference these, these things and create powerful, almost like mini apps using these data types. So a couple, I just want to, now that that's kind of the core concepts that I wanted to show, now I'll just show a couple of the other data types. That was chemicals and elements. This one has, all right, I have to enable twice, enable editing and then enable content. This one has space and astronomy referenced. So here again, I'll just point out, you have a little icon next to something in a cell, which means that packs a wallop, and that icon is representing the data type that is mercury, for example, when I click on it. And because it is referencing mercury, that means I have all of the physical properties and orbital properties available that I know about mercury. And so this has a little symbol on it, which means I can click into there. And I can also expand my card, which will come in handy when I look at the sky chart, which I guess is not in the orbital properties. There's so much data, but it's fantastic that we have this much data. Sky properties, there it is. So sky properties are, where's the picture? All right, bear with me. I want to show this cool picture because it blew Mr. Excel Bill Jellin's mind that we were able to show the sky map from the current user's location. So there you go. So it was the sky map property. My bad, folks. So the sky map property is the current sky map from the user location. And so that is a image that will be updated when you refresh this data type. And so it's possible that the object you're looking for in the sky could drop below the horizon, therefore the sky map will be different or empty, depending. And we do this because with every query that hits our service, the IP address is sent with that query. It's not something we store or save, but we use it as a part of the calculation to figure out what results to return to you. And so that's how Excel kind of knows where you are, so to speak, to give you things like the sky chart and the sky map. So just FYI there are some things that are refreshable like that. So that's just like a little bit about planets. We also have movies. And with movies, you can keep track of your movie list, as well as images for those movies. And you can build your spreadsheet in these very different ways. So if I like Tarantino, I wish I knew how to spell Tarantino. Okay, let's go with a different actor. Will Ferrell. Sorry. We'll go back to Brad Pitt. He has 2 T's, doesn't he? I prepared for this, I promise, folks. Okay, so I actually didn't remember how to spell Tarantino, but I know Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is by Tarantino. So what I'm actually going to do, because I know this, is I'm going to go into his card and the director, and I'm actually going to look at the director and go, okay, Tarantino is spelled this way. There we go. And now these are all the movies in my collection, or, you know, my coworker's collection, that are by Tarantino. And I can, you know, use this symbol to recognize that there are additional things here to go in and dig into. We made sure they added things like rating and genre that are so people can do different filters in different ways. So so movies is something I recommend you play around with if you really want to understand like the structure of a data type, especially because this is something that I think most people have a concept of, oh, movies have directors, movies have actors, movies have a cast. And that really kind of helps explain how to navigate the hierarchy of data that's available in a data type and navigate the concept of arrays within data types. So for example, you will have seen this square that looks kind of like a grid. That means that this has more information behind it because it's a little icon next to the text. But it really just means that, oh, this is an array. So Kill Bill Volume 1 has 2 credited writers, Uma Thurman and Quentin Tarantino. And so when I dig into Uma Thurman, it goes back to her information as well. So I can do that through the array. And one of the things that my coworker Joe McDade is having not trouble with, but acknowledges that customers can have trouble with is if I pull out writers here as a property, it will spill into this dynamic array, very similar to how we did stock history. But if I just want Uma Thurman, if I just want to access just her, how do I do that? Well, I have to put a formula on this to filter it out to just Uma Thurman. But with the navigation that we've built into back to writer, with the navigation that we've built in here, if I hover, well, right now, if I tab to Uma Thurman, that little symbol appears again. And with this little symbol, that indicates that I can pull out just this value. So when I click on that value, it pulls out, oh, and I must have had Tarantino selected. Sorry, I was loose there. But it pulls out just the item that I had from the array. And so this is an example of how you would index into an array to get just the single item that you want. And so we've tried to make that easier. And I know we are almost out of time because it's over at 7:30 if I read my thing correctly, unless it was supposed to be over at 7:20, in which case I'm so sorry, everybody.
It's all good, Kaycee. You can take your time. You know, people who need to drop off can drop off, and I mean, you know, outside of that, if you've got more stuff to go for it.
Okay, great. There's definitely just one more thing I wanted to share, and like I said, I could talk for hours about this stuff. Maybe not coherently, but I definitely can talk for hours. The last kind of data type I wanted to go into was a city data type. So I'm actually from Wichita, Kansas. And so I'm going to start here. I've typed in my, you know, identifier in text. This is just text, Wichita, Kansas. I go to the data tab. I hit location. And when I hit location, it's going to go ask Wolfram, hey, do you recognize Wichita, Kansas? Do you know what that means? It says yes. It comes back. It puts the symbol in my grid. I click on this. I verify, yes, this is from Wichita, Kansas. With cities, in particular cities, we have added weather history. Now, I showed you stock history at the beginning. Which is accessed through a function. That's funny. You've got access through a function, and in this case, you have access through dot notation, through data types. So here, there is a property called weather. So I'm going to pull out the weather property. And here I have weather for Wichita. And it has a little symbol, which means I can click on it. to open a card. Now, people go, oh, this is so plain. Yes, because we've only started with history. We do plan to add things that are current and forecast to this card as well. But for now, history is an object that I can pull out to the grid on its own merit. And it's pound busy here because it's going and fetching all the data from Wolfram. And so when I open the weather history card, it will show me that I have 3 options for how to look at the weather history. I have daily options, weekly options, or monthly options. Now you'll notice when I look at weekly, it just says week 1, week 2, week 3. This indicates that this is the average for all of the history that Wolfram knows about. For stock history, we wrote a function to look up a specific day that we want that stock price for. This entity here is meant to provide, the overall history for the month or the week or the day, going back 40 to 80 years, because Wolfram can do that math. And so, like I said, if you're trying to go on a bike ride and want to know what was the weather or temperature last Saturday when I rode 10 miles, it won't work. But if you're trying to plan a wedding and say, okay, what month is it going to be the highest? I look at mean maximum temperature, and this is in Celsius because Wolfram is a mathematic engine. A scientific engine, so it uses the metric system. And I see, oh, okay, this might be too hot for me in July. So let's say May. May is a good time. And so this is the monthly history, the average high in the average temperature for that month. I think I just saw a question that said, how well does weather work outside North America? Great question. Let's try St. Petersburg. You probably meant Vancouver. I probably could do that too. And it's going to think for a second. This isn't lightning fast, but it's not that slow either. So it does have weather for St. Petersburg. If I go to Wolfram Alpha, I actually can look up which weather station that it is pulling this from. Just repeat my query here, for example. And this is something we're looking to get added as well. I need to put in weather. This is something that we're looking to add as well from Wolfram's database. But there is basically the concept of, hey, we are pulling this data from this airport's weather station. And it has things like relative position. So if you are, this is just like an insider's tip, like if you're cool, right, or if you need it right now, that's the way to check is you'd go to Wolfram Alpha and whatever city weather comes up, this is the weather station until we get it added into Excel proper. Let's see. Okay, that's it, and that's one way to check. And let's just see what typically you're experiencing in Vancouver.
Same as Seattle, pretty much. Hey,
Okay.
Quick question for you, Kaycee.
Yes.
I noticed that you've got obviously a weather data type here. You got all kinds of things going on, but those actually weren't on the data types menu themselves. Like weather isn't a I guess first class citizen, if you like, on the data type menu at the moment. Is that right, or is that coming?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
But you can still get to it if you can drill down the right way.
Yes. That's a great call out, Ken. That is exactly right. So there are some hidden data types. We don't want them to be hidden forever, but currently they are hidden. So cities can drill down into weather, and movies or books can drill down into people, for example, even though those things aren't available on the data type themselves as individual buttons. In the future, we do hope to add like notable persons as a button, as well as if you have a city in the grid and hit the weather button, it will return with, this weather object for you. We just haven't been able to get there yet. However, there are some things, this won't work for weather, but there are some things like Where the Red Fern Grows, which is a book in concept. And in that book, I can go to this button, which is automatic, which is kind of like our everything is hidden under this button, even if we don't have a button for it. So when I hit automatic here, it's going to take me to the data selector pane. And hopefully the data selector pane will be able to tell me that, oh, hey, this is Where the Red Fern Grows, a book. And now this data type here is a book. And it has an author and a publication date. Now you'll notice this information in books is lacking more than, say, the information we have available for cities. That's one of the reasons that we've hidden a lot of things under this automatic button, and hidden or not made explicit things like weather, because again, these things look sparse to some degree. And so if you are interested in something, try typing it as an identifiable noun to some extent, and then hit the automatic button, and you can see if it works, as well as if you click on this tell me more, if you are able to see data types. We have tried to list out all of the hundreds of domains that could be available under buttons. And yes, and now it's 7:30. I probably could talk more and more, but like I said, you will be able to access this presentation. It has links to places where you can go read about the different data types and try them out yourself. I think I see a question in the chat around
a couple there,
who's the data provider? Who maintains the database? So the data provider for these data types is Wolfram Alpha, and you may not be familiar with that unless you did a lot of calc homework on the internet. So they are, oh, and this is these guys, I think, digging around. Yes, so Wolfram Alpha is a knowledge engine, and it's also kind of like a search engine and a computation engine is what they call it. And so they basically maintain data sets that are sometimes curated by experts. And when they update their data, they take about 4 weeks to push new data updates to us, Excel. And so whenever they update their database, we will get those updates in Excel. So for example, if I have the United States and I have a leader's property and one of the leaders is Donald Trump, when the database gets updated that the election results have happened and he's no longer president, Wolfram Alpha will maintain that database update connection, and then we will be able to hit refresh in Excel to get the updated data. And it's kind of a hand-wavy answer because we're trying to some degree, abstract the data provider from Excel, but it really is like Wolfram Alpha's call on what the source of truth for the data is, if that makes sense. Okay, and then I see the other question is there a way to back look up movies released in 2019? That is at the top of our backlog of features to implement, because in order to create a lot of these sets, we know that you have to go and search for things in the internet and then copy a list and paste it into Excel, and then you'll have to go through the process to select it and then convert it. That is top of our backlog, is to figure out how to do sets. We don't have a perfect solution yet, but integrating some sort of set search is on our minds. Thanks for that, Brent. Okay. I will take more questions. However, I do know we are over time, so thank you for your patience with me, folks. This slide is going to be the helpful one for if you are interested in trying these things out yourself at the moment. Like I said, you have to join Microsoft Insiders, and then these are the places that it's available. And these are helpful links to the articles that describe the features. The Wolfram data types are English only. StockHistory is available in all languages. For stocks and geography, which are our Bing domains or powered by Bing domains, we are rolling out German, Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese. And so in about 6 months, we should have that out to production. So these two won't be English only, and that's because our data provider, being the Bing Knowledge Engine, has agreed to support additional languages. Wolfram, however, is English only and English only for the foreseeable future. So that's kind of a downside if you work in frequently mixed language environments or have customers or coworkers who need alternate language. These things do not translate like function names do. And then the last thing I'm happy to do any Q&A that anyone wants, or if you want me to try to convert something, I'm willing to do that also. So not Canadian. I thought you guys spoke English. Anyway, so, and then I'm willing to answer any questions you have. I also have questions for you. And so if you go to this link, it's a 7-question kind of survey. It's kind of like Net Promoter Score style in the beginning. And then at the end, there's just open-ended feedback for telling me if you would use any of this, what you're looking for, how you would use it, and those properties that you would want to see available. Like I said, when I showed book, like where the red fern grows, we're sparse in properties here. So if we needed to make an ask, like if books was something that everyone showed interest in, and we needed to make an ask to Wolfram to include number of pages, for example, in the typical publication of this book, that would be an ask that we would have to make to our data provider, because like I said, they own or control what data kind of goes into Excel at this point. And so I look forward to hearing from you. I would really appreciate the feedback. We haven't rolled this out super broadly yet, but it is, public knowledge. So I definitely, there's no non-disclosure agreement, but we are still tweaking things to the best of our abilities. If there's anything else, please feel free to put them in the chat. Thank you again for your patience with me going over time. I had, 20 spreadsheets I could show you, but it will be way more exciting to play around with yourself. So I look forward to 50% of you doing that, and then letting me know what you think. Anything else?
Killing me, Kaycee. You're killing me. I want to be in that 50%.
I know.
So, hey, listen, thank you for this. This is fantastic. I mean, I've had the chance to see the data types grow up and whatever else since the very beginning of this thing over the past, I don't know what it's been, 3-4 years. And I mean, where these things are today is unbelievable. And I just can't wait to get my hands on them. This has been a fantastic presentation. I appreciate your enthusiasm for it and appreciate all the cool demos and stuff you showed here. This was awesome. And I can see the comments that are coming and people are enjoying this, which is excellent. Just for reference, folks, this is being recorded, so if you have a friend that should have seen this thing, I will be actually posting this up on YouTube a little bit later on, and I'll let you know when that's happened. We'll post in the Power BI meetup site so that everybody knows when it's live. And outside of that, yeah, thanks again, Kaycee. This has been absolutely fantastic.
No worries. I also just shared a link in really huge font, apparently, to get anyone read-only access to the presentation. So you can click on links directly. And my email again, right there. If you want to email me, ask questions, please let me know.
And I'll post a link to the presentation, but I'm not going to post your email on the meetup site. We'll leave that one. Don't need to spam bots.
That's fair. Only people that have heard me talk know whether or not they want to reach out to me anyway.
There you go. Awesome. Thanks so much, Kaycee. We very much appreciate it. So we'll. It doesn't look like there's any more questions coming in, so we'll close it off for tonight. Thanks everyone for coming. I hope you've enjoyed this. We will see you next time, and we'll be having details posted shortly on what the next presentation is. So for this time around, thanks all, and we're going to sign it off, and we'll see you next time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ken. Thanks everybody for having me. Bye-bye.